Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there, nation, welcome to the show. We show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and welcome to another edition of Age of the Realms, my Age of Sigmar battle reports. Basically, it is I, Commander CheapSkate, with my Wild Hunt, which is my Sylvaneth army, versus Scream of the Emo of House Von Koss, which is a Flesh Eater Quartz army. And I gotta tell you now, this is the most crazy game of Age of Sigmar I've ever played. It's a really good one, and it's just pretty epic in all scales. So let's go ahead and talk about the army list, and then we'll move on to the battle report. Alright, so let's talk about the Wild Hunt. It is my Sylvaneth 4-Spirit Wargrove Battalion. Basically leading it, we have Durthu, followed by Koido, who's my Tree Man Ancient, followed by Sternbark, who is my Tree Man. I then have 3 branch wraiths named Drika, Briar Maven, and Saya Siobhan of the Shadows. After that, I have 3 units of Dryads, the Court of Tides, which is 20 Dryads of the Branch Nif, the Court of Summer, which is 15 Dryads of the Branch Nif, as well as the Court of Winters, which is 15 Dryads with a Branch Nif. And then finishing out my entire army, we have the 4 Shamblers, which are basically 6 Streakin. Alright, let's talk about my opponent, Screaming of the Emo's army. His army is called House Von Koss. It is a Flesh Eater Charnel Pit Carrion battalion, and it's a pretty big one. So first of all, we have Marduk Von Koss, the Beast of Blutwald, with his Strigoi Volkar the Harrower, the Strigoi Ghoul King on a Terrorgeist. After him, we have Heinrich Kimmler the Lynch Master. He's like a master Necromancer. After that, we have the Beast of Bathory. He is a Vargulf. After that, we have the House of Balefire, which is 25 Crypt Ghouls with a Ghast. The House of Usher, which is another unit of 25 Crypt Ghouls with a Ghast. After that, we have the House of Von Koss, which is 25 Crypt Ghouls with a Ghast, followed by the Ravenous, which are 6 Crypt Horrors, I believe is what they're called. After that, we have the Walking Dead of San Reme, which is 20 zombies, the Standard Bearer Noisemaker. After that, we have the Rolling Bones, which is a Corpse Cart. And finally, finishing up his entire army, we have the Calliope of Chaos, which is a Mortis Engine. And now round up my opponent's army for this one.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so this is the plan for the entire battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. Basically, we have our 2 armies already laid out. Lots of Sylvaneth Wildwoods. Those little craters which are in the center of the battlefield, those are my opponent's Charnel Pit Carrions, I believe is what it's called. It's Charnel Pit. That's a trend that basically gets him to 15 inches. He gets a lot of buffs for. And boy, does those guys get buffs. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's go into the individual deployment zones and talk about what we have. Once again, I apologize for the blurriness of this picture, but basically this is my entire army that's laid out so far, my Sylvaneth center. As you can see, I got my 6 Treekin, followed by my 3 branch wraiths, as well as Durthu kind of layer on the left-hand side. The rest of my army is along the spirit paths, basically waiting to teleport in at any time. So that pretty much makes the deployment for my army, and since I can deploy it first, I get to go first in the next turn, which is always an awesome thing. So let's talk about the Flesh Eater Quartz real fast. Alright, so this is my opponent's left flank. As you can see there, that big looking dragon looking thing, that's supposed to be his Vargulf. After that, we have a unit of 25 Crypt Ghouls with the Crypt Ghast right after him. Moving on to the right hand side. And then as you can see there, we start moving into the center lines. And the center, he has another unit of 25 Crypt Ghouls. Those 3 big monsters behind them are his Crypt Horrors. And that's pretty much the deployment on his left flank. And here's a picture of his center deployment. As you can see there, he has his 2 of his 3 Crypt Ghouls of 25 Crypt Ghouls apiece with Ghasts kind of lined up there in the center. Behind them, you have 3 units of Crypt Horrors for each one as well. So he's got his 2 units basically stacked back there. And the left-hand side there on the back, that black steam tank, that is the proxy for a what's it called? Mortis Engine. That's what he brought along to his battle. That big, huge dragon-looking thing, that zombie-dragon-looking thing in the center. That's actually his Volkar, which is his his Terrorgeist. And right next to him is the Strigoi Ghoul King of the big wing rocking right there. Behind him, you see what that is. That's his corpse cart, but he accidentally put that there by accident. Basically, he was setting up his army. He forgot to get those guys moved along. So when you look at the next photo, you'll see that corpse cart is already to the right-hand side. If you're wondering what's up with that, that's because he made an honest mistake and I let him move it. But anyways, that's deploying for the center. And finally, on the right-hand side, he's got his 20 zombies with Heinrich Himmler basically behind him as well. So that is the right-hand flank for him. And he's supposed to have his corpse cart located in that area as well. He just forgot to put it there. So that is the plan for my enemy. And with that, we move on to turn number 1. Alright, so this is top of turn number 1 for the Sylvaneth. As you can see there, I basically use my command ability and basically summon up another Sylvaneth Wildwood. I put right there in front of that Charnel pit, which is where the location is. If my opponent gets within 15 inches of that Charnel pit, all of his units get an additional +1 on their attacks. So that basically gets to basically dish those out, which is looking pretty kind of rough on that part. So I put my Sylvaneth Wildwood right there too to kind of balance that when I move my forces there. And that's command phase for this part so far. And when it came to my magic phase, basically I summoned up some more dryads. As you can see there, I have a lot of looks like Treekin. I'm proxying those Treekin to represent dryads. Those Treekin are supposed to represent 2 dryads apiece. Is basically what's going on because I just ran out of dryad models and I wanted to summon them up. So my opponent allowed it, so we allowed it to happen. So yeah, got a nice little mess of dryads to kind of act as a speed bump to my opponent with that. And moving on now. And with command out of the way, we go directly into the move phase. You can see there, basically, I just brought in all my units. Traditionally, I like to keep my units at back and basically let my enemy come to me and then surround them and totally envelop them. But this case, though, it was all about delaying tactics. I realized that if those Charnel pit Carrion battalion units got anywhere near that Charnel pit, it was going to end up badly for all my stuff. So I tried to try to stop them from doing that. And for anybody who says that Age of Sigmar doesn't have any tactics, that you really can't use any tactics at all in this game, it's all about rushing in and just destroying your opponents right in the center, they're absolutely wrong. As you can see right there, my entire army is kind of spread out in this kind of like U shape, and my idea is to try to secure the flanks, rush through the flanks, destroy my opponent, and then meet up in the center to basically envelop him. That's my idea. And that's what's nice thing about Age of Sigmar is that you can kind of deploy those kind of tactics because how fast everything moves and also how you can like teleport things and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and zoom in on the close-up so you can see exactly where I moved all my troops. As you can see in this picture, I teleported both the Court of Summer and the Court of Wonders into those two Sylvaneth Wildwoods in order to face the the Wargrove, which is coming my way, as well as that unit 25 Crypt Ghasts. Oh, sorry, not Crypt Ghasts, Crypt Ghouls. So basically, I deployed there in order to intercept that. My plan is to basically attack that left flank and put pressure on my opponent's center and keep him away from that Charnel pit. So that's the zoom in on this part. As you can see here in the center, basically those newly summoned dryads that I have, I just basically moved them up as quickly as I possibly could past that charnel pit. I didn't really clear the charnel pit, unfortunately, but so they're right there at the edge, but it's giving me enough choice that hopefully I can charge into them later on and basically kind of bog down their progress. As you see right there in the bottom of the page, I move my tree kit up forward as well as my 3 branch rates toward that newly summoned up Sylvaneth Wildwood in order to stop the center there. So that's the zoom in on this one. And on the right-hand side here, I deployed my Court of Tides, which is my massive unit of 20 dryads, right next to that Sylvaneth Forester in the center to kind of help reinforce that center part. And on the very far right-hand side, as you can see, I got all 3 of my treemen. I had Durthu, Coadil, the Treeman Ancient, as well as Sternbark, my regular treeman. I deployed them on that Sylvaneth Forest there on the right-hand side. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to sweep around to the right and smash into that unit of zombies, go through the corpse cart that's supposed to be behind them. They'll be there in the next picture, and then start putting center pressure on that center part. So my idea is to try to kind of envelop my opponent early. So with movement out of the way, we go directly to the shooting phase. As you can see in this picture, having all 3 of my treemen open up on that unit of zombies, I basically cut it in half. Durthu's this Lamentations of Despair shooting ability isn't all that powerful. I mean, you get 12 attacks and you hit on 3s, but you got a wound on 5. So like maybe 4 of them at most will probably make it if you do the math right. So because of that, not much done with that. But Coadil as well as Sternbark shooting abilities basically you have the tide for me. So shooting was particularly spectacular on this part. With shooting done, we now move on directly to the charge phase. And as you can see from this picture, the charge phase didn't go so well for me. I was hoping to send everything in a tidal wave of destruction, but basically what I got was a staggered advance instead. As you can see in this photo, my center line of dryads, my chef dryads basically made it to the center lines. So those massively huge units of crypt ghouls, which is kind of nice to stop them down. But as you can see, my flanks didn't really quite make it. My treeman, Sternbark, as well as Durthu made it, but my treeman Ancient did not, as well as the left-hand flank, none of my dryads made it either, which was kind of rough. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out in the close combat phase. Here's a close-up of my newly summoned 15 dryads running into those center lines. Remember, those treekin aren't really treekin. They're supposed to be 2 dryads apiece. That's what's going on with those ones. So that's the close-up on these center lines here. And here's a close-up of the charges to the right. As you can see there, Durthu and Sternbark make it to that unit of zombies, as well as where that corpse card is going to be. So that's kind of raw and nice, but unfortunately I didn't get any additional support from my unit of 20 dryads either, so that's going to be kind of rough. So it charges over, we go directly into the combat phase. And there has been some. As you can see in this photo, Durthu basically just destroys that unit of zombies as well as by himself. He wipes them out, and then with his Impale attack, he attacks Heinrich Killer, kills that guy as well with that. So that was pretty freaking epic. And then with no targets left over, Sternbark piled in and took out the corpse cart in the back as well. Luckily for me, none of the stuff when they did their counterattacks injured any of my treemen, so my treemen are looking pretty and basically ready to charge in the back ranks of that massive unit of Crypt Ghouls as well as Crypt Horrors for my next turn. So that's what happened in this side of the battle. And this is when I realized how dangerous Crypt Ghouls are in a Flesh Eater Charnel Pit Carrion army. These guys are ridiculous. Okay, here's why. In a unit of ghouls, they already have 2 attacks apiece, which is, kind of spectacular. They get +4 to hit, +4 to wound, which is kind of cool if you think about that. But what happens is they also get additional attack if there's more than 20 members in their unit. So because of these are 2 units of 25, so now they have 3 attacks apiece. They're also within 15 inches of those charnel pits, and they get an additional attack on top of that for their ability for their battalions. These guys are dishing out 4 attacks apiece. Now these are units of 25 ghouls apiece with 1 crypt gas on top of that. So you're looking at 105 attacks that these guys are dishing out. If only half of these things wound, and the half of that may only basically, if only half of them hit, and another half wound, which basically a quarter, they're talking about 25 wounds being dished out on average with one of these units near these charnel pits, and it was ridiculous. Plus, they also get a reroll for ones to hit if their Ghoul King is within 15 inches of them as well. So, needless to say, my Dryads got massacred, and they didn't do anything back in return. So, whew, this is going to be a rough battle because of those number of attacks those guys get. And now I am quivering in fear of these Flesh Eater Courts. Alright, with combat out of the way, we're now turn 1 for the Flesh Eaters. As you can see in the command phase, basically in movement phase, the combination of command and both movement, he basically brought the quickness is what he basically did. First of all, he used Grave Call and got 6 more Crypt Ghouls added to both the Crypt Ghouls in the center as well as the Crypt Ghouls to the right-hand side as well. And then after he got his Grave Call down, he had no more magic because I killed Heinrich Kimmler. He basically just rushed everything forward as quickly as possible. So you can see there, he uses command ability, which allows a unit to run as well as charge in the same turn. So you can see there he sent his center unit of 25 Crypt Ghoul, actually now 31 Crypt Ghouls now because of the Grave Call. He basically sent them over to secure the far side of the charnel pits. He also sent in his other unit 25 Crypt Ghouls to the right, heading him towards my court of ties there as well. He also sent his 3 Crypt Horrors to deal with Durthu as well as Sternbark. And then on his left-hand flank, he basically sent his other unit of Crypt Ghouls, Crypt Horrors, as well as his Wargrove, moving as quickly as they possibly can and charge into my Dryads on the left-hand side. So just a tidal wave of undeath destruction coming my way here. Here's a close-up of his Wargrove as well as his 25 Crypt Ghouls and 3 Crypt Horrors heading to the left flank of my army, and that's going to look pretty rough because I saw what those Crypt Ghouls can do with 4 attacks apiece, and I'm not looking forward to see what they're going to do to my poor Dryads. So that's the close-up on this picture. And this picture, this is a close-up of his Crypt Ghouls hanging in the center. As you can see, they've occupied the far side of that charnel pit in order to secure that. He also moves up his his Strigoi Ghoul King with his Terrorgeist moves up as well as his Calliope Chaos, which is his Mortis Engine. He also brings all this up forward too. As you can see on the far right-hand flank, he basically sends up his other unit of 30 Crypt Ghouls towards my Court of Tides, and he also sends up his 3 Crypt Horrors to deal with my treatment on the right-hand side as well. So I'm expecting to get charged at pretty hard here when the charge phase happens. And since most of his stuff is out of range for shooting, we go directly into the charge phase. And in the charge phase, pretty much everything goes in. Here on the left-hand side, the Wargrove smashes to my Court of Summer, while the other unit of Crypt Ghouls, the 25 Crypt Ghouls, crashes into the Court of Winters. So that's going to look kind of lovely. Lucky for me, however, that right-hand unit of Crypt Horrors didn't get a chance to get crash into my guys either. They basically failed their charge test. So I guess you just got to count your small blessings when you can. I apologize ahead of time how blurry this picture is, but luckily for me, as you can see there, the center unit of ghouls failed their charge, so they couldn't charge into my line of Treekin. At least not yet anyways, so that's kind of nice there. So kind of gives me a little bit of reprieve and the time to build up my defenses because of that. So that's what happened this side of the board. As you can see on the right-hand side, that huge unit of Crypt Ghouls charges into my Court of Tides, and if you look at the top there, the Crypt Horrors also charge into Durthu as well. So combat's going to be kind of raining down pretty hard here in a little bit. So that's what the charge is done. We go directly to the combat phase. On the right-hand side here, basically my opponent managed to land 2 wounds on top of Dirthu, which was kind of sad, but in the end, Dirthu just kind of single-handedly wiped out that unit with no problems whatsoever. And man, Dirthu is just beast. I love this character. He's just totally awesome in Age of Sigmar. He just destroys that unit, and basically all my problems are solved. So that's coming on the right-hand flank here. And this battle here in the bottom half of the right-hand flank, this battle basically shook me to my core. It is ridiculous the amount of attacks those crit ghouls get and the amount of damage those guys can put on a unit if they roll really well. My opponent was rolling on the box, getting a bunch of 5s and 6s, and he got to re-roll all of his 1s. It was pretty devastating. I managed to kill, I think, 5 or 6 of the crit ghouls in the end, but they managed to tear down that entire unit, leaving me only with 2 dryads left over. It was sad. I got my butt handed to me in a really bad way, so yeah. Woo, crit ghouls, man, they are bad news in this game. Flesh Eater Courts, you should definitely be afraid of those if you're going to face one. So, yeah, that's coming on this side. And then on this side of the board, basically on the left-hand side, the Wargrove managed to kill a couple of my guys. I managed to inflict 3 wounds onto the Wargrove, but he healed back a lot of wounds because of his vampire blood ability, or whatever it is that allows him to heal up. On the right-hand side, though, my Court of Summers got absolutely destroyed by those crit ghouls. Looking for me, though, I kind of cut that unit in half as well, but they destroyed me. But in the battle, to make things worse, whenever a unit destroys another unit in this game for the Flesh Eaters, they get a +1 to their save, so now those crit ghouls are at +5 save as well. In fact, every single crit ghoul unit is now at a 5-up save, so just devastating, just devastatingly bad. So with combat move on, we move on to turn number 2. Alright, so turn number 2 goes to the Flesh Eaters. We both roll off for initiative. My opponent rolls a 6, I roll a 1. So because of that, the Flesh Eaters get to go back to back, and that was all kinds of badness for me. I'm not even going to lie. I kind of died a little bit inside when that happens. But anyways, as you can see on this side, basically this combination of both movement phase as well as command phase. As you can see, he pretty much brought all of his guys up pretty quickly as possible. He tried to use Grave Call again, but I managed to dispel using my 3 branch race to do it. So that was kind of nice. So he didn't get any more reinforcements called in. However, he did use his command ability on that left-hand side of crit ghouls in order for them to run and then be able to charge this turn as well. So let's go ahead and talk about all the zoom-ins so that we can see exactly how he moved his forces about. As you can see in this photo, he basically moves up his left-hand unit of crit ghouls to kind of line up there to charge on the left-hand flank, which is kind of scary, which I'm not looking forward to as well. He also brings up his crit horrors as well and gets them some to charge into the left flank of that unit as well. In the front there, he basically kind of inches his, his crit horrors, his crit ghouls in the center, kind of inches them up a little bit forward in order to get a front charge as well to envelop me. And on the right-hand side, which is the most horrific image of all, basically he flies his Strigoi Kill King on his Terrorgeist as well as his Mortis Engine to the right-hand flank of my units to be able to charge those guys as well. So all in all, pretty devastating. Not looking forward to that part. And with movement over, we go directly into the shooting phase. Shooting was pretty uneventful for my opponent. He only managed to kill off one of my Treekin, as you see on the far right-hand side. Both his Terrorgeist as well as his Mortis Engine basically did their screaming attacks onto that unit and basically only managed to blink off one of my Treekin, which is, I guess, okay. But, at the end, though, it doesn't really matter, though, because once he sends that tidal wave of Flesh Eaters after me, it's basically be over with. So with shooting done, we go directly onto the charge phase. And as you can see here, a tidal wave of death and destruction just rains down up on my guys in the center. Both units of crit ghouls crash into the front as well as the left flank of my Treekin. So the only thing I was lucky about is that my opponent decided to use his left-hand side of crit ghouls to deal with my Treekin instead of my branch wraiths, which is also kind of a nice thing, I guess. Unfortunately for him, however, his crit cores in the center as well as his Mortis Engine couldn't close the gap. They couldn't charge in, so luckily for that, for me, those guys didn't make it. But his his Ghoul King on his Terrorgeist charged into my first of my branch wraiths, and so I'm just like, oh my god, this is going to end badly. So this is the charges for this round. So with charges out of the way, we go directly into the combat phase, and luckily for me, the Wargrove only managed to, my opponent kind of flubbed this turn. He only managed to kill 2 of my Dryads, and when my Dryads counterattacked, we basically wiped out that Wargrove out. So my left flank is now secure, and basically I'll be running those Dryads back to my main center line to basically help out my troops. So that's combat on this side of the board. In the center, just a tale of woe, misery, and sadness took place. Those crit ghouls just wiped out my entire unit of Treekin, so those guys are basically been wiped out. Luckily for me, however, because they wiped out, there's no overrun rules or anything like that in Age of Sigmar, otherwise my branch race would have been next, so I was kind of lucky for that part. But man, those Treekin got murdered like it's nobody's business. And then luckily for me as well, my opponent's School King, as well as his his Terror guys flubbed his rolls. He basically was able only to land 3 wounds onto my branch wraith. So my branch wraith basically held out because they have 5 wounds, and I also managed to inflict 2 wounds back onto the Terror guys as well. So talk about small favors and how that kind of looked out for me. So that was really lucky. So I mean it's not going to do very much for me next turn because those guys are going to get charged at by all those crit wars. But I guess it bought me enough time to basically try to get my troops back over there and try to help out as best as they can. So we'll see what happens the next one. So that's comment on this side. And then over here, my last 2 Dryads on the right-hand side there got wiped out by those crypt horrors and not crypt horrors, crypt ghouls, and no one was expecting those 2 guys to survive anyway. So yeah, with combat done, it goes down to turn number 2, Sylvaneth. So see what happens next. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn number 2 for the Sylvaneth. As you can see here, this is a combination of both command phase as well as movement phase. So for the command phase, I used Dirthu's tree sing ability to bring up some more trees there on the left-hand side in order to add some support to my troops when they roll in to start doing combat with my opponents when I start charging my guys in. I also used my branch wraiths. I used one of my couple of spells from those guys. I tried to use Rouse to War on 2 of them, but basically it got stopped by my opponent's binding spell. I'm sorry, one of them. The other one didn't make it because I didn't roll high enough for the second one, and then for the last one I basically used Arcane Bolt on that unit of crit ghouls right in front of them, so I managed to plink off 3 of those guys in mortal wounds. That was kind of nice. And the movement phase, you can see, is pretty straightforward. I teleported my 3 treemen from their respective forests on the right-hand side and brought them right back to the center line, and basically I'm planning on using those guys to charge into the lines and basically add some support to all my guys as they need to. On the left-hand side there, I got my Dryads kind of moving in to get to the crypt horrors up in the left-hand side, so that is command and movement for this one. Here's a close-up of my Dryads basically getting ready to charge into those crypt horrors, so to add some more support on that left flank. So that's what's going on over here. And here's a close-up of my 3 treemen getting ready to charge in and to basically cause some destruction. So with command and movement over, we go directly into the shooting phase. And my treemen brought the thunder during the shooting phase. It was actually pretty epic what basically happened. I took all 3 of my treemen and I opened up on the Strigoi Ghoul King and his Terror guys. And it was freaking epic what happened. Dirthu, with his horrible Lamentations of Despair shooting attack, he managed to put 4 wounds onto that bad boy. And then he had another 2 wounds that came in from Sternbark, and the one that finally pushed him out over the edge was the last shot from this Doom Tendril Staff from Coadil. Basically, he rolled up, got 6 wounds on that bad boy. He was unable to save it, and it pushed him over the edge, and it killed the Ghoul King, which is pretty freaking epic. It's kind of like these 3 guys went Pulp Fiction style. They teleported in, looked at this Ghoul King, and just went Pulp Fiction style on him and just shot him, is basically what they did. So that was pretty freaking epic on that part. So shooting phase is now over with, and with shooting phase done, we go directly to the charge phase. And my treemen bring on the pain once again. These treemen are freaking epic. It's kind of like they've done nothing all battle, and now that they got time, they're basically charging in to deal with the damage on that part. So that was pretty freaking epic. As you can see on the left-hand side, Sternbark charges to that unit of 25. I'm not sure how many crypt ghouls anymore. That big unit of crypt ghouls are right there on the left-hand side. Dirthu also charges to the crypt ghouls that are in front of him as well to kind of lend support to my my branch wraiths as well. Unfortunately for me, Coadil did not pass his charge roll, so basically he's still stuck in the forest. If you see on the top left there, my Dryads basically charging those crypt horrors as well. So everything is pretty much where it needs to be. And with that, we'll go directly to the combat phase. And this picture is a close-up of all my units charging into the areas that need to be. We got my 2 treemen charging the respected crypt ghouls. Yeah, crypt ghouls units, and you can see my Dryads there charging to the crypt horrors up there. So on to the combat phase. Alright, the combat phase on the left-hand side didn't go so well. I only managed to put on 2 more wounds onto those crypt horrors, which is kind of sad. But the trade-off, however, is that they wiped out half my guys in the process. But luckily for me, when it came to these guys' bravery test, I rolled a 1, so they're not going anywhere. So that part was actually kind of nice as well. So those crypt horrors are still tied up for another turn, which is kind of like a small blessing in disguise. Combat here in the center, however, went completely as expected. It was freaking epic. Sternbark basically brought the pain with his sweeping blows attacks, as well as his impale attack. Managed to wipe out the remainder of that unit of ghouls that was in front of him, so that part was pretty cool. And with on the right-hand side there, as you can see there, Dirthu, with a combination of my branch wraiths, were managed to be able to kill off the entire unit of crypt ghouls as well. But being within 3 inches of the Sylvaneth Wildwoods is what basically makes Dirthu mad, because he gets 6 damage for every single one of his blows that lands. He gets 3 attacks. He also gets D3 additional attacks when he's near within 3 inches of a Sylvaneth force. Basically, I got 6 attacks total. I think 5 of them went off, basically penetrated through, so 30-odd wounds, as well as combined with the wounds caused by my branch race, was able enough to kill that unit and destroy it, which is pretty freaky epic as well. I mean, this battle has basically had both sides. At one turn, I was basically screwed. Now I'm starting to gain my second win and getting trashed again, so that was pretty freaking epic as well. So with combat over, we go directly on to turn number 3. And to add insult to injury, when we rolled up for initiative, I got the initiative on that part. So I got a 4, my opponent got a 2, so turn 3 goes to the Sylvaneth. As you can see in this picture for the command phase was pretty epic. Durthu uses tracing ability to put up to another Sylvaneth Wildwoods right there on the right-hand side, as you can see it there. And then my 3 Dryads basically cast Rouse to War spells is what they did. The first one wasn't successful in casting this spell. For the other 2, however, they were very successful. One managed to summon up a unit of 12 Dryads, while the other one managed to summon up a unit of 10 Dryads. And basically, see that I set them up with a flank charge directly into that Mortis engine, as well as the last remaining unit of Crypt Horrors, which are located up there in the top. So as you can see there, that's command phase on this one. And here's a close-up of my units. My Dryads are basically newly summoned for Rouse of War, located right there along that Sylvaneth Wildwood. So I'm basically planning on those guys charging in here in a little bit to bring some vengeance down upon my Flesh Eater opponents. So here's the picture of the move phase. As you basically see here, I just sent my 3 treemen moving up forward as quickly as they possibly could. I sent the one within 3 inches of the Mortis engine for Durthu, so that way he can charge into him next turn. And I also used the full movement allowance for Coadil to get into the location. Coadil hasn't charged successfully all this game, so basically I'm hoping that he'll be able to be successful when he charges to the front of that Mortis engine. As you look on the left-hand side, Stormbark the Treeman also moves up as well for his maximum distance to charge into that Crypt Horror unit. So with charges moving out of the way, we go directly into the shooting phase. Shooting phase was pretty lackluster this turn. I only managed to put off 2 wounds on that unit of Crypt Horrors, so I was able to kill off the last Crypt Horror that had the remaining 2 wounds left on him, so that was about it. But then again, I really can't complain either, because these 3 treemen basically stepped up and killed a Strigoi Ghoul King on top of a Terrorgeist, so I guess I can't complain too bad about that part. So with shooting over, we go directly into the charge phase. As you see in this photo, basically Sternbark makes his charge roll and charges right into the front of that unit of Crypt Horrors as well, so he's going to land some support attacks from my Dryad unit, which is basically almost down to the last man on that part, so charge is pretty epic on this side of the board. And on the right-hand side, Durthu as well as Coadil finally charge into that Mortis engine, which I'm pretty proud of because Coadil was able to charge into anything this whole game, so this at least it counts in the end, I guess. Well, he's also Treeman Ancient, so I guess he's kind of crotchety and old that way, but both of my Treemen are now engaged in the Mortis engine. As you see on the right-hand side, all my newly summoned Dryads charge directly right in front of that Crypt Ghoul unit as well, so hopefully I might be able to balance out the odds, but I'm not really sure because my opponent is still within 15 inches of that Charnel pit, so we'll see what happens next in the combat phase. So the charge is done with, we go directly to combat. Combat on the left-hand side was kind of rough. The Crypt Horrors managed to kill off almost all of my Dryads except for one of them with the combat phase, but in return between the Dryads as well as Sternbark, we managed to wipe out that unit of Crypt Horrors as well. So less unit to worry about now, so pretty successful about that part. Plus, Sternbark looked like the man because basically he has no wounds suffered at all, so that was also kind of nice as well. So that's combat on this side of the board. And as you can see on the right-hand side, combat was pretty epic as well. Between Durthu and Coadil, we managed to kill the entire, the Mortis, and managed to wipe that bad boy off. I think, actually, now I think about it, I think Durthu basically was the only one who killed it. Coadil didn't get a chance to attack it because Durthu basically did it for him, so that part was pretty epic as well. As you can see there on the right-hand side, those units of Crypt Horrors just cut that huge unit of Dryads down. Basically, they absolutely destroyed that huge unit of 10 Dryads I nearly summoned up. They killed 8 of them and basically left 2 left, but with the bravery test, those guys basically fled, so that unit was gone. At the same time, I managed to cut that Crypt Ghoul unit in half as well, so that part was pretty nice as well. So that was combat phase on this part. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn 3 with the Flesh Eaters, and as my opponent basically looks at the board and realizes the only thing that he has left is that unit of Crypt Ghouls, he basically calls the game at this point. So as you can see here, here's the end of the game. As you can see, this battle was really extreme. Most of the time when I have been fighting with my Sylvaneth army against other armies, I basically pretty much dominate. You can clearly tell that a lot of my guys are still left behind while most of my enemy is dead. But this case, as you can see here, the only thing I have left standing are 3 Treemen, 3 branch wraiths, one that's almost about to die at any second, and then 1 dryad. One dryad by himself, and then of course that newly summon unit of dryads. But that's it. Everything else is pretty much dead and gone. And my opponent's entire army is pretty much dead and gone too. Leaving the crypt ghouls the only thing left over. So this battle basically had it all. But we'll talk about that later on when we get to the after action report, because right now this game is over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, this is the after action report. This is the part of the battle we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we go into battle. So this is the after action report for Age of Sigmar Battle Report number 9. It ended up being a victory for yours truly. This was a really close one. In fact, it was too close in my opinion. I really underestimated the ability of the Flesh Eater Courts within Age of Sigmar. I didn't know that they could step up like they did, and Scream of the Emo basically taught me a lesson. He basically made me eat my lunch. It was pretty brutal. The entire combat was just really rough. So let's talk about some of the things that kind of helped me out here. First of all, the Spirit Paths and Tree Singing won me this battle. It allowed me to teleport my treemen from one side of the battlefield all the way to the other side of the battlefield, basically bring up more Sylvaneth Wildwoods to help buff up my army as well. So without those two things, this battle would have gone completely different, and I basically would have died as well. Rolling out of the box with Rouse of Wars also saved me from chaffing my enemy's units as well. The first round where my first turn when I was able to bring up those 3 units of Dryads really helped kind of slow down my enemy's advance a little bit so that way they couldn't get on me too quickly. And then finally having those 2 flanking units of Dryads at the very last turn also helped me out as well to help balance out my opponent's attacks on me. So that part was pretty neat as well. The Flesh Eaters, however, man, the Flesh Eater Courts are no joke. They are absolutely destructive. Crypt Ghouls especially. With them being 50 inches of a Ghoul King, as well as a Charnel Pit, and combined together is a recipe for destruction. You're talking about 4 attacks per Crypt Ghoul each. Plus they get to reroll 1s when they get to hit as well. So combining those abilities together basically makes it a very, very destructive army. Like we said before, basically getting 100 plus rolls to hit, 100 plus attacks out of 25 crit goals with this special ability as well. So pretty brutal. Never want to face that ever again if I can help it. Durthu in this battle, and of course, as always, is the MVP as usual. He just destroys units no matter where he goes, and Durthu basically did that for me as well. Same thing with Sternbart and Coadil. Shooting also won me this game as well because he managed to wipe out that Ghoul King at the last possible moment as well. So that part was kind of nice as well. So like I said before, great times as usual. Love playing as Scream of the Emo in his Undead army. He's always bringing up things that are new combinations and things I've never seen before in an Undead army. So this just goes to show that, you know, Undead is still a viable army even in Age of Sigmar, and Scream of the Emo is one of the best generals I know, so he almost had me on this one. It was pretty bad. And as a final departing remark, if you should ever be facing off against a Flesh Eater Core army, you should be scared. You should be very, very scared. In fact, you might want to bring yourself a crucifix, some holy water, and some blessed wooden sticks that we're going to stick your opponent afterwards because, man, these things are deadly. So once again, that pretty much wraps it up for Battle Report number 9. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever the case may be. Your feedback is always appreciated, and it just helps me make me better on these battle reports. So that'll be it for now. Signing off. See you guys down the road.